Welcome back to Thought Kernel, where we break down educational concepts to understand them deeply, analytically, in their applications in the real world. Today, we're going over something that occurs very often in our natural world in the side of economics, and it is the hidden problem with taxing the wealthy. Let's get into it. It sounds simple: tax the rich. Just tax the rich. It's one of the most common political phrases in the world today. The logic feels bulletproof. A tiny percentage of people hold an enormous share of global wealth. And at the same time, every day, people are facing rising costs, student debt, underfunded schools, and housing crisis. The contrast is staggering. According to Credit Suisse, the wealthiest 1% own nearly half of the world's assets. And while averaging people pay taxes through every paycheck, many billionaires pay a lower effective tax rate than nurses or teachers. So naturally, people demand fairness. Tax the rich becomes a rallying cry, a moral and economic argument rolled into one. And honestly, it makes sense. If we need money to fund public goods, shouldn't we get it from those with the most? But here's the twist: taxing the wealthy isn't just about setting a number. It's not as easy as passing a law and collecting billions, because in practice, the results are often unexpected. Usually, taxing the rich sounds simple, but turns out very different. Foreshadowed by the flying jets over the gold company buildings with the rioting people, in an image from a real riot claiming tax the rich. The common statement we included is a very, very common protest around America based on capitalism in the top 1% wealth. The UK tried it and lost $92 billion. Let's talk about a real world case. The United Kingdom, 2024. In an attempt to raise more revenue, the UK targeted a group known as non-DOMs, wealthy residents who live in Britain but earn most of their income abroad. The idea: remove their tax exemptions and bring in an extra 12.7 billion euros. Essentially, the United Kingdom was expecting to return 12.7 billion euros in their currency of tax revenue from this imposed tax law. But what happened? Panic. Within months, over 16,000 millionaires made plans to leave. That's not a rounding error, that's a stampede. And they weren't just leaving London for the countryside, they were moving their money, assets, and businesses to low tax friendly nations like the United Arab Emirates, Singapore, and Switzerland. In total, over $92 billion in wealth was preparing to walk out of the nation. So instead of collecting more tax, the UK may have accidentally hit the eject button on its wealthiest residents. It's not that the policy had bad intentions, but the execution was chaotic, and chaos makes capital nervous. Essentially, the United Kingdom did not lose $92 billion, but in taxable wealth, in either capital gains or just general income and other taxable ways that these businesses and assets make money, left the country. So now they have $92 billion of assets less to attempt to tax, which could do even worse to their tax revenue in the following years instead of what they intended. But wait, most millionaires don't flee. Here's the plot twist. When done right, taxing the rich doesn't lead to panic or mass exits. In Spain, Sweden, and Norway, countries that introduced or reformed wealth taxes, almost no millionaires left. Well, why is that? We're talking less than 0.01%. These countries didn't scare off the rich because they took a different approach. Instead of surprise taxes and press fueled drama, they used slow, deliberate policies that were friendly to the wealth. The rules were clear. The increases were gradual. There was no gotcha from the government. And the predictability made the wealthy feel comfortable, and they felt they had a good understanding of what was to come in the future, not scaring them. It turns out the rich aren't allergic to taxes. They're allergic to instability. They don't run from responsibility, they run from risk. Tax design isn't just a financial tool, it's a psychological one as well that needs to be utilized properly. The real problem. The takeaway here isn't that taxing the wealthy is doomed, the problem is bad tax design. When governments act suddenly, with unclear rules, inconsistent messaging, or political motivated changes, they inject fear into the system. Wealthy individuals who have teams of lawyers and accountants on speed dial react fast. They don't wait around to see how it plays out. But it doesn't have to be this way. If tax policy is predictable, moderate, and globally coordinated, it can actually work. Gradual changes, clear laws, broad international cooperation. These aren't just boring policy buzzwords. They're ingredients of trust, and trust is what keeps capital in place. In fact, the Tax Justice Network estimates that a smart global wealth tax could bring in over 2.1 trillion per year in American currency, not through scare tactics, but through structure. It's not about taxing smarter. It's about taxing smarter, not about taxing louder. So where does that leave us? If the goal is to make the wealthy contribute more and stay, we need to stop shouting and start designing. Loud reactionary tax moves might win headlines, but they often lose revenue. The truth is, capital is mobile. Wealth can run, but it doesn't have to. When tax systems are smart, not just aggressive, they create stability, and stability is sticky. Taxing the rich can work, but only if we understand what makes them move and what makes them stay. Because the biggest threat to tax revenue isn't billionaires, it's policies that treat tax like a weapon instead of what it really is, a contract between the state and the people who fund it.